Welcome to the College World Series Finals preview, where we'll be going through all that happened the past week in the College World Series and then giving our insight into what the final two teams need to do in order to win the championship. Once again, this is the fifth straight year where an SEC team will win the College World Series Finals, with both teams being in the SEC. Just means more apparently. And yeah, those two left being number one overall seed Tennessee and number three overall seed Texas A&M. After week 5 of our rankings in the regular season, neither of these teams dropped out of our top 5 for the rest of the year. So it's not that much of a surprise that either of these teams made it this far. There was a while where Tennessee and Texas A&M were two of the top 3 teams in our rankings, and a few weeks were down for some of the teams and switched things up, but never fell fully out of the top 5 for either of these teams. So really consistent overall, and yeah, not surprised at all that these were the teams that made it in.
Yeah, it feels very fitting that this is the final. I think these were the two most consistent teams throughout the season. Tennessee was just right there the whole year. It felt like didn't really get to that number one spot until the very end, but they were always just knocking on the door. And Texas A&M was in that one spot for a while. Super consistent the whole year up until the last couple weeks. We saw the pitching fall off a little bit, maybe a little bit of fatigue, but they've turned it back around in the postseason. They're playing well. The offense is playing well, even with Montgomery out. So super impressive for them to continue to put up these numbers throughout the postseason. And yeah, this is going to be electric final, like you said, 5 in a row for the SEC. What makes that even more impressive is that none of them are repeat teams. It's all 5 different teams. So super exciting, cool for the conference. It really does mean more. If you're a fan outside of the SEC, it kind of sucks to see, but at the same time, you just kind of gotta respect what that conference is putting together as far as the quality of baseball.
Yeah, I gotta tip your cap to the SEC conference as a whole because they just continue to dominate. But I mean, the ACC also had a really good year this year. Just fell short of a team making it into the finals, but had half the teams in the College World Series. So really solid overall. For last week, we made predictions for the teams to make the finals. Both of us chose Tennessee and NC State, choosing one from each conference. So we got half of the side of the bracket right, but NC State unfortunately had a pretty rough week, so not getting those points there. But besides that, overall really solid College World Series so far. Tennessee and Texas A&M both had pretty impressive weeks. Both the first games were the closest, and then after that, it was a pretty easy run for both those teams. Tennessee, especially with that first game, probably should have gone the way of Florida State. They faced Florida State twice and North Carolina once, with Florida State being the 8 seed and North Carolina the 4. So all really solid competition, but after they got knocked off the rust in that first game against Florida State, they really just pushed forward and dominated. Just really impressive overall. Pitching staff took care of things after that game 1, and they just seem like a super complete team. Like I said, pitching really solid for the most part, and just they know how to get clutch hits. Just game after game, at bat after at bat, they just are able to show up when the lights are the brightest, and especially players like Christian Moore, Blake Burke, they just know how to get it done in these moments. They've been there for a few years, seen teams in the past succeed and fail for kind of where they were supposed to end up, but they just at this point are super mature, more mature than Tennessee teams we've seen in the past, and at this point they're probably the favorite going into the final, but Texas A&M is definitely a team that could knock them off.
Yeah, this was an interesting first week of the College World Series. The first 4 games, the first 2 days were just absolutely electric. 3 walk-offs and then a game-saving home run robbery. So just super competitive games. It was looking like it just might be one of the best College World Series overall that we've had. But the second half of it was a little less exciting. A few more blowouts, and yeah, Texas A&M and Tennessee kind of just ran away with it. We didn't have to see a winner take all game on either side. Both just advanced in that first opportunity there in their respective finals. So both teams are coming in pretty fresh pitching wise, and so I think that bodes well for a really competitive final series here. Like you said, Tennessee certainly is the favorite, just a more complete team overall heading into the postseason, and then Texas A&M losing Braden Montgomery as well. You lose one of the best bats in the country, and then one of the best defensive outfielders in the country as well with his arm out there. And so just a tough matchup for them, but should be super competitive, and this thing could go either way, really.
Yeah, currently the head-to-head, they only faced one game against each other this past year, and it was in the SEC tournament. Tennessee won 7-4, but it was a super competitive game. Tennessee was just able to kind of extend the lead late in that one, but yeah, super tight. Like you mentioned, Texas A&M also kind of struggled a little bit that first game. It was definitely tight with Florida in the first game they played. But A&M did lead the whole way, so they kind of had that covered, and they have a really solid bullpen when they're firing on all cylinders, so they can really lock a game down late if that's necessary. Game 2, all they needed was one good inning against number 2 overall seed Kentucky, where they put up 5 runs, and that just put the game out of reach. The pitching really shut things down, and overall, Tennessee and A&M's pitching pretty solid. Tennessee had that first game that was a bit rough, but after that, yeah, all the pitching staffs really just locked in, and Texas A&M final game, yeah, like you mentioned, was able to not need to go to that if necessary game, locked it down. Yeah, just dominated on the pitching side. Offense was a little bit more balanced there as well, but yeah, overall, A&M, super impressed at, yeah, like you mentioned, being able to turn things around even through all the injuries they've had this year. They have had their ups and downs a little bit more than Tennessee, but overall, if you're looking at their records, Tennessee at 58-12 and A&M at 52-13, both the only teams that have 50 wins. So we've seen that they've just been consistently putting up wins all over the place, and haven't really had any major fall offs. The only reason why Tennessee has a lot more wins is because they were able to make a run in their conference tournament and win it. But A&M right behind them in the amount of losses. So overall, both these teams are two of, if not, the best 2 teams in the nation if you just look at their overall portfolio of the year. So for once, I mean, the past few years, it seems like some underperforming teams have made it a solid run in the postseason and been able to make it to the finals. But this year, especially, it seems like the best 2 teams made it, and it's good to see that, especially with Florida being one of the teams that was making a deep run late. Really didn't want them to make the College World Series final, just selfishly, because I don't think they really believe to, or really truly deserve to be a team that made the postseason at all. But obviously they had the talent to make a deep run, and yeah, they were able to follow that up. But A&M being able to knock them off in both the games they played was a little gratifying in my case. But yeah, for that, I guess we can jump into our predictions for champion and most outstanding player of the College World Series. Starting with the champion, I'm going to be sticking to the team that I've stuck with the entire postseason. That's Tennessee. It is a little bit of a cop-out, but at least I'm staying consistent with what I predicted before the postseason even started. Had Tennessee winning the whole thing, even though had NC State as the runner-up. That obviously not coming true, but Tennessee, it could be the team to break the curse. We'll have to see what happens, but this team looks like the team that could be able to. They're just super mature in their approach and continually just keep getting those clutch hits and locking down when the pitching staff really needs to. So this Tennessee team, I feel like they're the team to beat, and they have been for a really long time.
Yeah, I think I have to go with Tennessee here as well. I do think they've just had that it factor throughout the postseason where you just go into any game and you're just confident that they're winning it. I don't really feel nervous even when they're down a couple runs. You just feel like they have that run support at any given time, and they have enough on the pitching staff to be able to keep themselves in games. And so I do think that they'll be able to take this one. As far as a College World Series player, I think I'm going to go with Blake Burke here. He's had a pretty good time in Omaha so far, and I think he will continue to do that against A&M here in the finals.
Yeah, I'm gonna also, obviously stick with the Tennessee player since we have him winning it. I think there's always a shout for a pitcher winning the most valuable player, because past 4 years, that's been the case. A pitcher's won it, and if you have two really impressive performances, that's kind of all you need for a starting pitcher to be able to lock that thing down. But Tennessee hasn't had that just electric pitcher this year that has just had dominant performances in the College World Series. I think if A&M were able to win the College World Series, I think there are a few pitchers that could get the shout for most outstanding player. But if Tennessee is in that spot, then I think it, for me personally, from what I've seen from Christian Moore, won the Triple Crown in the SEC. Didn't win the Player of the Year in that conference because they just had a few guys that put up some monster numbers just above him in the non-conference schedule. But Christian Moore has just looked insanely impressive. He's not missing a thing up there. Every contact he makes, it seems like it's 100 off the bat, 100 plus at least. But just super impressed at his overall approach. He's been here before consistently. He's been a starter since his freshman year. He's seen Tennessee teams be in the spotlight and kind of mess things up. Obviously, Tennessee was projected to be kind of easily run through the tournament a few years ago and at least make it to the College World Series, and that didn't happen thanks to Notre Dame. But Christian Moore just seems like a guy possessed right now, and it'll be tough to look past him for most outstanding player. So, yeah, sticking with him there. But I guess since you brought up Blake Burke, we have to at least give some sort of mention to the controversial check swing call. Obviously, Florida State fans were pretty upset. Feel like it really, let down their whole season with that one call. Obviously, they had their chance for redemption, but things just aren't the same when you miss out on that first win there, and Tennessee really just rode that momentum of winning that game. But it is, from my perspective, yeah, it sucks that call happened, but it's one call in a game. They had a lot of chances to lock things down late after that, and they still gave up the lead and lost the game before extras even happened. So they had multiple opportunities after the fact to be able to shut things down and not let this game get away from them. And that didn't happen, unfortunately. So sure, one call kind of decided it, but there were a lot of other potential moments that could have made big impacts on that game as well.
Yeah, definitely a tough moment if you're a Florida State fan. But like you said, there was other opportunities to end the game, so can't completely blame it on that. But truly, the game should have been over at that point. And funny enough, I think we just saw that. I think it was yesterday or the day before in the Dodgers game as well. Another check swing that would have ended the game, and very next pitch, Teoscar Hernandez hits a go-ahead home run. So, it's been a bit of a theme lately in baseball. The check swings aren't really going the right way, but that's just what happens. You're just going to have calls throughout the game that go your way and go against you, and it just sucks when those ones in the pivotal moment don't go your way.
It's also very funny. I think in the Tennessee North Carolina game, the game after, Blake Burke had a check swing that was not a swing at all, and he got called out for it. So it was kind of they did not want to mess with it at all. If there was another miss like that, it would the fans would have gone crazy, even though it was not in a pivotal moment of the game. They just said, you know what, we'll kind of even the scoreboard a little bit on it. Not really the same circumstance, but it's just a funny situation where they got Blake Burke back for that one there. But with that being said, I think that'll be it for this podcast for the College World Series final preview and predictions. Super excited to see how things go. Hopefully there's 3 games. We haven't really seen many winner-take-all games in the postseason at all. There have just been very few regionals and super regionals, as well as the College World Series that went to Game 3. So really hoping that we get that there and be able to see some really just moments where the lights are the brightest and see which players just step up and take that. But I do think for Texas A&M to win the College World Series, they have to get that game won, especially because they only really have one legit starter. They really need to take that spot there. They have a really good bullpen, but it is pretty light on depth right now. They have had a lot of injuries, so if they can stay on top of things, it would be very, very beneficial for them to be able to take this Tennessee team down. I think Tennessee is just overall more complete, so Texas A&M has to get a step up on them quick to be able to take them down.
Yeah, it would be tough to beat this Tennessee team in the third game. They do have a lot of depth on that team, both in the bullpen and in the position player group as well. So, yeah, tough to take them down the more this thing's extended. But same as you, I do kind of hope this goes to a winner take all game three. Hope that there's some pivotal moments late in the game. Hopefully, a walk off or go ahead at some point. Just to get the blood rushing. And so get the heart pumping, and we'll see if we get some of those pivotal moments like we had last year. Uh, I mean, that first game between Florida and LSU was super electric. So we'll see if we can get one or two of those type of games here. Definitely hoping for it.
Yeah, if that Florida LSU series was looking so good at the start and then just kind of fell apart late with two blowouts for one for each team. So it's pretty funny how things changed, but hopefully we can get some more competitive games out of this series here. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stick around for next week where we'll do our season recap. We have a lot of predictions that we made preseason and just overall tally of how we've done for each week to week. We chose series to predict and tallied all those results. So be sure to keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you then. Peace.